All right, welcome back. Let's get you caught up with the big stories for November 14th. We're going to connect today's top headlines directly to your UPSC syllabus, covering everything from a huge security incident in Delhi to a political firestorm in West Bengal and a really tricky economic number you've got to understand.
So let's jump right in with the biggest headline of the day. A deadly blast has rocked Delhi, and the investigation is now zeroing in on a private university in Faridabad. This is raising some very serious questions about terror networks and, of course, internal security.
Then, over in the political arena, we've got a massive development. The Calcutta High Court has just disqualified a senior leader. This sets a huge precedent and brings the anti-defection law, a cornerstone of your polity syllabus, right back into the spotlight.
And in the world of economics, retail inflation has hit a record low. Now, on the surface, that looks like fantastic news. But as we're about to see, the story behind these numbers is way more complicated, and getting a handle on it is absolutely key for GS Paper 3.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down for you today. We'll start with national security, then jump into polity, the economy, what's happening with the environment, and social justice, before we wrap it all up with some key numbers you need to know. Okay, let's get into our first section, focusing on internal security, a super important topic for GS Paper 3. The investigation into the Delhi car blast is already revealing a pretty complex and, frankly, well-coordinated plot.
Things are moving really fast here. As you can see, the death toll is now up to 13, and several key people have already been identified or brought in. What's really crucial for your analysis is seeing how the investigators are piecing this all together. They're not just finding suspects, they're tracing the source of the materials, they're auditing the university that seems to be a common link, and they're tackling modern challenges like those encrypted communication apps. This is a textbook case of a multi-pronged counterterrorism operation in action.
Now, as you'd expect, this blast has kicked off a pretty sharp political debate. On one side, you have the opposition questioning the government security doctrine, asking if that act of war principle, which was used after a previous attack, should apply here. They're also calling for an all-party meeting. On the other hand, the union government is promising very decisive action. The Home Minister has come out saying the punishment will send a message to the world, and they've already got financial agencies digging into the money trail of that university.
Okay, let's switch gears to polity and governance. We've got two major stories today that hit right at the core concepts from GS Paper 2. We're talking about the separation of powers and the integrity of our electoral process.
So, first things first, let's do a quick refresher on a really crucial constitutional provision that's at the heart of this big news from West Bengal, the anti-defection law. As you know, the 10th schedule is all about stopping legislators from jumping ship for personal gain, and it gives the presiding officer, in this case, the Speaker, the power to disqualify them. Now, this case is such a fascinating example of judicial review in action. It's about senior leader Mukul Roy, who switched parties after getting elected. The Assembly Speaker initially said, nope, not disqualifying him. But now the Calcutta High Court has stepped in and completely overturned that decision. This is a perfect illustration of that classic tension between the powers of the legislature and the judiciary, a theme you see all the time in GS Paper 2.
And staying in West Bengal, this next story goes right to the heart of our electoral process. The Trinamool Congress is sounding the alarm over the deletion of more than 30 lakh dead voters from the state's electoral lists. This all came about after some information from UIDA about deactivated Aadhaar cards. But the big question the TMC is asking is, wait a minute, how could UIDA provide a state-wise list if they claim they don't store data that way? This has led to some pretty serious accusations of silent, invisible rigging, putting both the Election Commission and UIDA under a microscope.
Now, for the economy, where the headline inflation number today is honestly incredibly misleading. This is a perfect case study for your exams on why you always have to look beyond the headlines. Let's break down why this really matters for the RBI and for how you read economic data.
So at first glance, this number looks amazing, right? A retail inflation rate of just 0.25%. That's the lowest it's been in over a decade. You see a number like that and you think, great, prices are stable, the economy is humming along. But hang on a second. A number that low should immediately make you stop and ask, what's really going on here? Is everything actually getting cheaper across the board? Well, the short answer is no. The answer lies in a little statistical quirk called the base effect. This is a term you absolutely need to know. It's basically when a really high or really low inflation rate last year messes with this year's numbers. A super high base last year can make this year's inflation look artificially low, even if prices are actually going up.
And this table shows you exactly how that base effect is working. Just look at the food and beverages category. It makes up nearly half of the entire index, and it saw prices actually fall by 3.7%. Why? Because last October, food inflation was a massive 9.7%. That incredibly high base from last year is dragging the whole average down. Meanwhile, if you look at almost every other major category, fuel, housing, miscellaneous, prices were actually higher this year. So the key takeaway here is that a statistical anomaly in one huge category is hiding price rises everywhere else.
All right, let's turn to the environment, another critical area for GS Paper 3. And no surprises here, Delhi's recurring air quality crisis is back in the news, with pollution levels staying dangerously high, which is prompting a lot of action.
For the third day in a row, the air quality in the capital is stuck in the severe category. The AQI was at 404 on Thursday. We're talking about a level of pollution that affects even perfectly healthy people and is a serious threat to anyone with existing health issues.
So, what's causing it all? Well, it's that familiar and very potent mix of factors. You've got weather conditions like low wind speeds that just trap all the pollutants. You've got stubble burning from nearby regions, which contributed about 12% to the PM 2.5 levels, and of course, local sources like firecrackers. But a major new focus this year is the Palswal landfill, which has now been officially declared a pollution hotspot because of all the dust and truck emissions coming from it.
In response to this, the Urban Development Minister has ordered some pretty concrete steps to tackle the pollution coming from Balswa. This includes officially naming it a hotspot, bringing in anti-smog guns and water sprinklers, using drones to map out the waste, and speeding up the process to finally get rid of those infamous hills of garbage. All right, let's quickly look at some key decisions in governance and social justice coming out of the Supreme Court and other government bodies. These cover a really wide range of important issues. So let's run through 4 other significant developments. First, in a huge win for conservation, the Supreme Court has told Jharkhand to declare a massive part of the Saranda forest a wildlife sanctuary. On interstate water disputes, the court has said Tamil Nadu's challenge to the Mekadatu Reservoir is premature for now. In social justice, Tamil Nadu is getting praise as a pioneer for including transgender healthcare in its public health insurance. And finally, a big step for workers' rights in Delhi, as the MCD is moving to regularize its daily wage sanitation workers.
And finally, let's wrap up with a rapid-fire data roundup. This is just to help you lock in some of these other key facts from the day's news.
Let's just quickly run through these numbers. 328 Indian fishermen have been arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy so far this year. 6 Naxals were killed during an encounter in Chhattisgarh. Over 4,200 fertilizer licenses have been suspended in a major crackdown on hoarding. And 100 new Sainik schools are going to be set up under a public-private partnership model. What these numbers really show you is the incredible range of issues the administration is juggling every single day, from diplomacy and internal security all the way to agriculture and education. So we want to leave you with this thought. Everything we talked about today really captures the complex trade-offs that are right at the heart of governance. This is the real balancing act, isn't it? The ability to navigate these competing priorities, development versus the environment, national security versus individual liberty, that's what public service is all about. Stay informed and keep thinking critically.